I don't know if I can get in. Oh, Jesus Christ. Right, welcome back on this rather drizzly Saturday morning. Now, it's been about a year, nearly a year, since I started doing these vlogs, and I hope you guys are enjoying them. I'm trying to mix it up. Certainly, you can still tell I'm finding my way with them. Thank you for bearing with, and I'll try and keep them improving, try and keep them snappy, try and keep them really interesting and varied. And in that vein, although the bulk of the content is still going to be me out on farm, meeting farmers, working with livestock, because I think that's what people find most interesting. But more broadly, this is still a vlog about being a rural vet, a rural farm vet, up here in the lovely rural county of Northumberland. Now, about 2 weeks ago, almost exactly 2 weeks ago, funnily enough, I was in London, but up here in the northeast of England and the east coast of Scotland, everyone was dealing with the aftermath of Storm Arwen. Now, Storm Arwen seemed to bring a pretty savage north wind with it. Certainly, we're used to some pretty cold weather up here, at least for Britain. Again, the Americans and Canadians watching this will probably think we are pretty soft. But for us here, people are used to dealing with the cold. Perhaps what they're less used to dealing with was the force of wind. Not far away at Brisley Wood near Alnwick, the wind speedo, or whatever they're called, read at nearly 100 miles an hour. And certainly in some places it will have been up to and probably over 100 miles an hour. The storm mainly was on Friday night when everyone woke up on Saturday morning. Heaps, and I mean heaps, thousands and thousands of households up here were left without electricity, they were left without water, they were left without phone signal. And to make things worse, because so many trees were down, it meant engineers from all those respective companies, utility companies, just were not able to get out. And as I say, it's been about 2 weeks since the event, and some people have only just got all of those things back: their power, their heating, their water, their phone signal. I'll get some drone footage. We're at Lorden Shores at the moment. I'll show you some other bits locally which have been pretty badly affected. Now, what I found about people up here is they are very much against that sort of woe is me, navel gazing attitude. They got on with it. Everyone rallied around. There's a fantastic local councillor here in Rothbury called Stephen Bridget. There are similar councillors up and down Northumberland, and I assume elsewhere in the country. This really was a local effort. I think it does raise a few questions though. First of all, what are the Forestry Commission and all these forestry owners going to do with all this wood? I know nothing about forestry. I'll hold my hands up and say that. I don't know how long the wood lasts. For a lot of our farmers will have forestry on their land. They'll be dealing with that at the moment. The biggest thing from a livestock point of view will be fences down. So a lot of our farms seem to have a tree down over every fence and every wall. Thankfully, not many buildings came down. One of our clients further north on the coast did lose some livestock when a shed came down. But again, in the main, it could have been a lot worse. Anyone with a polytunnel, and a lot of our farmers lamb in polytunnels were just gone. As I say, generally people have been very, very, very stoic in their efforts to clean up, and absolutely massive kudos to them. Up here in this upland setting, what's seemingly going to be very trendy in the very near future are companies or farmers planting trees on their behalf to secure what are becoming known as carbon credits. That is, if I'm a big company, say an airline, and I want to make my carbon balance, that is my effect on the climate, look more favourable, I can carry on polluting. But if I'm planting trees somewhere else, that's fine. I could burn as much fossil fuel as I like, as long as I plant plenty of trees, that's fine. Now, you can probably tell my attitude on that. I'll not launch into a tirade on offsetting. What I will say is that there's a hell of a lot of carbon being released. You know, if Northumberland and the rest of Britain is a purse full of natural capital, a lot of it has been emptied, and again you'll see that in the photos. Once those trees are down, they start to decompose, releasing that carbon back. And it certainly makes me wonder about the wisdom of planting trees as a carbon store. As my colleague Joe said, not much of that permanent pasture has blown away, and that is still sequestering carbon and feeding livestock, keeping rural communities going. I mean, you can see the force of this wind. Obviously, heaps of trees down behind me, but look at these roots. I mean, I don't know if I can get in, oh, Jesus Christ, for perspective, but I mean, that has just been upended. Look at that, I mean, that's wild. And that's not just once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. That is hundreds and hundreds of thousands of times. I don't know if there's an official estimate for how many trees have gone down in Northumberland, Durham, the borders, up into Perthshire, but it must be vast, 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 vast. And that's, you know, when I said this is the natural capital, it's a bit like having a big wad of cash and the wind blows half of it out of your hand. That's the best analogy I can come up with at the moment. You'll see better, hopefully, on the drone footage, just how devastating it's been. Huge, huge damage. Again, from a livestock point of view, thankfully, there wasn't too much to worry about in the short term. A few hen houses blew down, some polytunnels flew away, need replacing. There was one shed in the north of our sort of catchment that did come down and some livestock were lost, but it could have been a lot worse. Mainly the big issue, the big headache for a lot of our farmers is the trees that have come down, and there are lots of them, have taken fences down, they've taken dry stone walls down and exposed areas of rhododendron and laurel, and also just made fencing livestock in and out of various bits very difficult. However, as I say, it could have been a lot worse for a lot more people. In fact, there's a perfect example of where trees come down, taking the fence out, and hopefully you can see it, that really dark green sort of big bush that the trees are coming out up of. That is rhododendron, and that is a very toxic plant, very dangerous for sheep, cattle and goats. That's the sort of thing people are having to deal with. Rhododendron is not a native plant, but it does grow very well in Britain. There's heaps of it about, especially in this upland setting. And now farmers are having to change their plans, having to think very carefully about where they have to put their stock. I'm naturally an optimist. I'm looking hard for a silver lining. I think if you've got a chainsaw ticket, or you plant trees, or you're a fencer, or you're a dry stone waller, at least you are going to be in work for some time to come. I don't know how long these trees last and how long they're salvageable for timber and for firewood. Maybe there's someone watching this video who knows and can enlighten the rest of us, certainly me. In Britain, there's almost a running joke nationally that when we talk about the weather, it's because we've got nothing else to talk about. It's because we've got nothing more interesting to say. And that for me is really a mark of a very urbanised society, because when you're out here, especially when you're working within an agricultural setting, the weather is so important. In fact, I think good old Jeremy Clarkson had something to say about it. So I'll see if I can find that clip.
And the next time a farmer moans about the weather, put your arm around him and buy him a pint, because He's not moaning about it because it's a bit miserable working in the rain. He's moaning about it because it's crucifying.
And you can see, no matter how much money you've got, no matter how clever you are, no matter how much you prepare, the weather can still make a fool of you and still sit people on their arse. That's it for this one. Hopefully nice and short and snappy. We've been very busy on the cattle work, PDing, Yoni's bleeding, all that sort of thing. In fact, so busy I keep on forgetting to take my camera out. Sheepside is very quiet at the moment. We'll probably get back into that once scanning starts, but we've got some really good stuff coming up this week and I will get my camera out for that to share that with you for sure. See you next week, guys.